Aha!
We made it, huh?
Whew.
2 minutes late.
Tell you what.
Well, that's what you get for being a producer and a coffee maker.
Yeah, well, it's like, I don't know why
and a
this...
host.
I don't know why the thing changes formats every once in a while.
Well, it's because of your poltergeist.
Yeah.
You've always had a poltergeist in your computers.
Maybe so. Hey, everybody, this is the Jimmy Doan Show. I'm Counselor Curtis. I'm here with Jimmy Doan.
And I'm Jimmy Doan here with Counselor Curtis.
There he is. And it's 4 o'clock on Sunday, which is why we are here. We do this twice a week these days, 4 o'clock Wednesdays and Sundays, Eastern Time. And we also post a copy of this up on YouTube right after the show, about an hour or so, with all the subjects time-stamped, so for your easy perusal. Also, I'll post an audio copy up on iTunes so you can subscribe to us there and get regular updates, as long as you don't have a poltergeist like I have all the time for some reason. But what's happening?
Okay, what's happening? Good question. A couple of things, a lot of things actually. What I did, I had to go with Mrs. Jimmy up for a 4-hour ride up and do some decorating, which was great fun for me since I'm such a great decorator. Anyway, found a nice place outside of Perry to eat, and I think it's called somebody's famous oyster house or something. Really nice place. Anyway, to go moving right along. The British Prime Minister asks the EU to delay the Brexit again until June 30th now. Theresa May asked the European Union on Friday to delay Britain's departure from the bloc until June 30th. And of course, it'll end earlier if everybody gets on board. What's interesting, they need to, the United Kingdom proposes the extension should end on June 30th if the parties are able to ratify before this date. The government proposes that the period should be terminated earlier if everybody gets together. But the main thing is, which I didn't realize, the 27 leaders of the EU, I didn't realize there were 27 countries in the EU, but they all must be unanimous. So how do you get 27 people all together to say, get out?
Well, that's for what they call a soft Brexit or a negotiated Brexit.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's what they need is to amend the treaty. They need all those people on board. But they can do a hard Brexit anytime. They
walk out the door.
That's it.
Don't let it hit you on the way out.
Bye-bye.
That's it.
We are good gone. And the problem, it seems as though the leadership in Brittany does not want there to be a division.
Well, that's one of the things that happens. As I've always said, if you have any kind of a group of advisor type people or whatever, it goes into 7 digits. I'm sorry, it goes into more than 1 digit. That is to say, into 2 digits. If you have a committee, okay, now you're starting to get into a place where you don't get things done. And of course, now they got the Parliament, which is like hundreds, and they all have to get their, make their waves or whatever they do, and the House of Lords and all that other kind of stuff. So the idea that they're going to come together on some agreement is a joke.
Well, they had 2 years to do it.
Yeah.
And so
not enough time, obviously.
Well, right, and that's what I'm saying. And of course, everybody's saying that. They're saying, look, you had 2 years. The hard exit deadline is now, so exit. And of course, there's some people saying, well, why don't we put it up to a vote again? Maybe people change their minds or whatever. But of course, that would undermine everyone's faith in their democracy or any voting.
Yeah, if you can just have another vote and reverse it. Yeah,
that's it. Hey, do over. Do over.
Yeah.
I say.
Yeah. Well, that whole thing is. Every time I read it, of course, it doesn't affect us that much, because every time I read it, I'm trying to figure out what side is this, who's against, and who's it for.
Well, like you said, look, this is a concerted, concentrated interest in the administrators,
right?
The dark web, sort of the dark, what do they call them? Deep state,
yeah,
of the EU/UK that don't want to see their jobs evaporate,
right?
And their positions of power dwindle or whatever, be remade or anything like that, and so they're resisting.
I watched there was a documentary that outlined what the Brexit was all about. This was a couple of years ago, I think, and it was for the Brexit, but they were talking about Brussels and what a huge conglomeration of people that are non-accountable. The bureaucracy in Brussels, I'm telling you, apparently is immense, and none of the people get to vote directly on any of those people. It's all handled, differently, almost kind of like what used to be before our 17th Amendment or whatever, when
it's a republic. In a way, it acts like a little republic.
Okay, all right, yeah, I guess it does, but it's still, the people that are making the rules are not directly accountable. That's what I'm saying.
No, well, they never are.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Ilhan Omar, a New York man charged with threatening to kill a Muslim congresswoman. Now, I wanted to ask you about this because what happened was he loves the president. This is all one of those things that a typical Trump supporter wants to kill what's her name. Okay, and the prosecutor's office said Mr. Carlieneo has been arrested and charged by a criminal complaint with threatening to assault and murder a U.S. official. The charge carries a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine or both. Now, I'm curious. Now, nobody was hurt. Mm-hmm. It was a threat against a U.S. official. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if it had been a threat against a cab driver, would it still be the same? Or if it was against you or me?
Well,
we're talking about 10 years?
Yeah, well, it wouldn't have been prosecuted, basically.
Right.
It all depends on who it is. But yeah, if you're in the government in any way and you get threatened, it's a big deal.
It's a big deal, okay.
They'll come after you.
And of course, they're just like regular people, just like the rest of us, you know.
Well, they're more equal.
Yeah, they're certainly more equal. Yeah. So I thought it was interesting. It seemed like a vocal threat carries 10 years in prison and $250,000.
Well, there has to be what they call some substantial step towards the completion of the threat. The guy has to Google how to kill a congresswoman or something. Or,
I think there was actually, I don't have it here, but it occurs to me that there was a little more to it.
Yeah, there has to be, because you can't, too many people just mouth off.
Right.
And everybody knows that. That's just what happens. You're sitting around, somebody says, I'll kill him, I'll get my gun right now. And then it's like, okay, settle down, cowboy.
Yeah, that's it.
Put the bottle down and go to bed. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And you don't want there to be any confusion there. But so really, the law is pretty good about that. It requires there to be what they call a substantial step.
Okay.
And towards the threatened action.
Okay, well, all right. I thought it was kind of interesting that they're as you say, they're more equal than other people, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, the law enforcement in this country has gotten to this horrible spot where there are so many things to enforce, and so many things to enforce that the citizenry does not want enforced. That is, all these victimless crimes,
right?
Driving crimes, drug crimes, and prostitution. So what it's done is it's created an atmosphere where the cops, basically, they get to pick and choose, or they have to pick and choose which things to enforce. Well, then when you're at that point, well, we're going to protect our people in this.
Well, the thing is, when you see on the side of the car it says to serve and protect, well, of course, who are you serving and who are you protecting? And of course, it's the higher ups.
Well, it is now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's you serve and protect the government.
There's getting to be a real division.
Yeah, there sure is. Bernie Sanders says there should be a study, quote unquote, on slavery reparations. What I thought this is interesting because this is one of the great things about pandering. Sanders, who has made earning support of black voters a central part of his White House bid, has previously said he does not back directly compensating African American community for the damage wrought by slavery and segregation. However, he went to an Al Sharpton.
They all went.
They all went.
Did you see it?
Yeah, no, they all went, and this was the National Action Network convention in Manhattan. Sanders expressed willingness to pass a law that would establish a commission.
He put them all on the spot.
Yeah.
The same law. And
right.
They all agreed.
Yeah, Sharpton did.
Yeah.
Well, I saw up there. There was a picture of Sharpton. It looked like he was kissing Bernie. Literally, he had gone up and hugged him, and
Well,
so,
this is a.
But I mean, you talk about it is funny because this was the same thing that they were talking about in West Wing, one of the West Wing things, and they were getting ready to run. And of course, Iowa is one of the first places, and you can't go into Iowa and say I'm against corn.
Right.
I mean, you don't. It's you. If you can't argue logic in Iowa, you have to pander to the corn people, and that's it. So, so here he is pandering.
How they pander, they're not going. No Democrat is ever going to garner the black vote the way that Obama did. They're just not.
Not even Kamala.
I don't think Kamala will. I think, somebody like Booker may get 75% or something. I meant a white candidate.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Racism. I'm calling racism on you.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Well, it's not that. Like I said, I don't think that they will be successful in their pandering efforts.
You don't.
No. I think that nope. So Bernie, he can say what he wants. Like I said, he should adopt a black child immediately and
Divorce
go
his
from
wife
there.
and yeah.
That's right. But reparations, on the subject of reparations, we've said before, this is insanity. This is beyond insanity because
it is.
it literally asks all of us to answer for all the sins of all of our ancestors.
Right.
Which is insanity. Because
Right.
there's no possible way it could be done. And not
When you
even-
consider 320 million people, I don't know what the population of the United States was in 1860,
Right.
but it wasn't that.
No, it was
A couple of
17 million or
yeah,
something.
Yeah, whatever. So since then, it's been over 10 times as many, and you're going to ask, and you're going to demand, not ask, excuse me.
Right.
You're going to demand at the point of a gun that all the people that have come here since then, all their offspring and generations are going to pony up for who?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you do the math, you probably know the math on this. When you go back in time and everybody has two parents and they have two parents and they have two parents, it doesn't take too long until you've got the entire population of the earth.
Right.
It's like 30 or 40 generations and everybody's covered.
Okay.
Which means going back that far, we're all related.
Mm-hmm.
So
Where's my reparation?
exactly. And also, how far back do you go? Do you get points for intervening acts? Do you cover other stuff like is a murder or a robbery? If your uncle robbed a bank, do you have to answer for that as well? I mean, what's the chain here? It's
Well,
ridiculous.
what if your great granddad murdered the plantation owner before he escaped?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the chaos that's involved in the math, that's involved in the computation of what we're talking about here is beyond any supercomputer,
No, it can't be.
beyond quantum computing. It is like, come on, it's ridiculous. There's no possible way. So they're dreaming. I mean, this is just more pandering. Even a study, even to say you do a study is like saying again, all of us are going to answer for all of our ancestors'
Well,
sins.
they do studies all the time. I remember in the Nixon era, they did a study on something. I think he might have done a study on pornography or something, and he just took it and literally dropped it in the trash can. This was a blue ribbon committee, and I forget what it was on.
Yeah.
But one of the things there are a couple of things that remind me about this as far as this is concerned. When you look at the, as you say, all the fingers and trying to track it all down, it reminds me of two things. One, when I have class action settlement suits, every once in a while I get a thing on a telephone, something, you're entitled to 44 cents or $1.50 or something. We figured out that you can get $1.50, in something, in some kind of whatever it is. And how did they figure that? I don't know. And
Well, that I know exactly how they do that, and that they have to establish that class of people very specifically. There are very strict rules
yeah.
about the establishment of those people and who falls into that category. And if they can't establish that class, then nobody gets a dime. So it's a very specific group of people who can answer the question, but for these specific bad acts by the defendant, we would not be in this position. Well, reparations will never be able to answer that question because there's far too many intervening acts. There's intervening generations.
Well, let me just...
Nobody in this generation was enslaved, and nobody in this generation who's alive today did any enslaving.
Well, I do everything Mrs. Jimmy says.
Well, that kind of enslavement, okay. But in the United States, there's no guilty parties and no parties who suffered. So we're talking about intervening people, intervening whole lives that you have to account for mathematically. I mean...
Well, if you do, here's an example. Forget the multiple generations, of course, but how about with the survivors of the Twin Towers? And all those people are when they raised all this money, and then they had to divvy it up among the survivors, the families that lost somebody, or you lose two people, or you got cancer. I mean, that was just one
one little event.
Yeah,
same thing with the Gulf oil spill. They do very general analysis of what's going on, and they grant you blanket checks and such. But that is, again, specifically identifiable plaintiffs defendants. I mean, you know, it was BP. We know who did the thing. Or
Well, they had in Florida here. They had the tobacco settlement,
right
which
now,
was
of course,
billions.
The 9/11 thing is a general. You know, that was supposedly because the firefighters had been placed in unnecessary jeopardy, basically.
Really?
Well, I mean,
I don't think so. They're the ones that they were the first responders. Boy, I tell you,
Yeah,
you got to give them
yeah,
heroic credit for that.
No, that's what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that they shouldn't have also had to face the detriment of the crazy dust or whatever they inhale.
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
So you know they sort of blamed that generally on the manufacturers and did some sort of
I don't know.
roundabout.
Well, I mean, but then there were people that were just standing around inhaling all that stuff. You know.
Right. And so so they taxed some New York or whatever, but again, I think it's just. I think it's insanity to even.
It is. I mean, but as I say, even something quote as simple as that. You know,
Right.
you can't even begin to. And if you're talking about generations and
Right. What happened if you have intervening relative that worked on the Underground Railroad or the Supreme Court or
You're right.
whatever.
Okay. Moving along. Well, I just thought it was okay. Now here we are. We're going to talk about prostitution a little bit.
Okay.
Backpage used to be a place that and it's long gone. But guess what? Surprise, surprise. Other alternates have sprung up.
No.
Hard to
You
believe.
mean they didn't kill the entire market?
No, they didn't. And it turns out that there's a website now called something like, let's see, what is it? I can't remember. A detective arranged a sexual encounter in this is from Pennsylvania, South Allentown, in a motel for $300 for a half hour. When a woman showed up at the March 28th sting, the detective arrested her and his 7th bust in a month. A few days later, he made his 8th on a similar sting. These are just a few of the busts that local authorities say highlight the sudden surge in prostitution-related activity in Lehigh Valley. Almost all attributed to a brand new website that's cropped up since Backpage went under. It's the site called Skip the Games. You ready for this, folks? Skip the Games, all one word. .com. It has all the stuff on it you want. Same thing. Described as local police and prosecutors as a more graphic and in-your-face version of Backpage, which authorities say has fueled a surge in prostitution in the area since 2010. Well, interestingly enough, a couple things. First of all, you're going to find a way. You don't ban the world's oldest profession like this. You just don't. But the thing that was interesting was they showed, and I didn't bring it here. They showed the statistics from 2002 to 2015 or something like that, and in fact, up in that area, it had declined dramatically from 168 arrests down to 25 or 30 or something. And they're saying it's been an explosion. I didn't see it from their own statistics. I didn't see it, but who knows? Maybe they have some other way of figuring it out. But I thought it's kind of interesting that the detectives get. But I'm going to talk about this here in just a second, because this is $300 for half an hour. It seems a little pricey.
Well, I don't know.
Okay. Porn stars find the 2020 Democratic candidates extremely depressing. With the presidential election approaching, many constituents in the adult industry are struggling to forgive Democratic candidates for their past voting record. Less than a year ago, most of the 2020 frontrunners voted in favor of 2 bills. One was Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act, and another was, quote, Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, commonly known as FOSTA and SESTA, whatever, legislation that has negatively impacted sex workers more than the sex trafficking it purports to stop. This is the unintended consequence. Gosh, really hard to believe. So it has consequences for platforms that promote or facilitate prostitution without distinguishing consenting sex work from coerced. In an attempt to excuse some of the candidates for their uneducated voting, porn star Nina Kay, K-A-Y-Y, offers a rather empathetic view. They probably signed it blindly without talking to anyone in the industry or talking about sex trafficking victims. Sure, a lot of sex workers are mad about it, so apparently...
They did not distinguish between sex workers who were forced and who were voluntary?
No.
That's the entire distinction.
No, didn't do it.
Jesus.
That's why the freebies or whatever whatever they are, they're complaining bitterly.
Right.
And they said that all of the front runners signed on to this thing.
Well,
So that's gonna impact
Maybe
probably
one day.
0.1% of their vote.
yeah, exactly.
I mean-
well, and this, did you see the related story about the sex doll?
Oh, well, I've got one here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the calls mount for the regulation of sex robots. Is that the one of which you
Yes.
speak? Okay, a short drive north of Toronto. Now this is what I like: $60, not $300 a half an hour. $60 buys you a half hour alone with a life-size doll that's warm and cuddly and ready to play, quote unquote. Customers take rented sex robots to a private room in a warehouse before returning them for cleaning. The owner of Kinky's Dolls told the Washington Examiner that he will open a second location in Houston this month with a goal of 10 U.S. locations by 2020. How is he going to do this? Well, there's no regulations. None. Zero. Nothing.
Nice.
Although widespread in Europe, there are no known robot brothels yet in the U.S. He rejects the label, saying he runs a showroom, quote unquote, that allows people to rent dolls, test them on the premises, and decide whether or not to buy one. Before opening the shop in Canadia last year, I consulted with a lawyer, and the lawyer said, listen, there are no rules, but if you're smart, you won't go and say you're operating a brothel.
Right.
It's a showroom.
Right. Nice.
Experts and activists say it's time to consider regulations, however, at a minimum, and here's what it always is, to protect consumer safety and public health.
Of course.
It always is.
Here's what I love about this story. You ready? If there's going to be regulations and regulators, then there's going to have to be testers.
That's right. Hello. What do I get paid for
What
this?
do you do for a living? I have sex with robots.
That's right. I'm a tester.
That's my job.
That's
this
right.
one's pretty good.
Yeah, this one's, yeah. You rank them,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Send this one back.
Yeah, that's right. Or you find out how clean they are. It's like a restaurant inspection. Found dust behind the thing or whatever it is. Or
Well, that's if you were. Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess
that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
gonna have to test all these dolls.
That's right. I've tested them all. That's right. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they're gonna, how long will it be before they start to regulate something like this when they have. Now I wonder if this policeman that does the sting operation on the other website, if you're going to do a sting operation on the robots. I mean, I don't know. Just
Put cameras in their eyes. Is what
I
you
guess
do.
I don't know.
You are under arrest.
Right. So anyway, continuing along with this was kind of interesting. A new condom packaging apparently requires 4 hands to have it open. Now you'd ask yourself, what is this? Tulipan, an Argentinian sex toy and condom brand, created a condom packaging that allegedly requires 4 hands to be open. Why, you ask? Why would you expect that? Well, because the packaging is part of the company's initiative to promote consent in sexual relations, because both partners have to, use to open it up. Well, of course, the first time they went in there and tried it, they found out that one guy could do it, and so.
What about one person with a pair of scissors?
Well, not only that. Well, yeah, right. How about one person with a not a needle, but a
Ice pick.
Ice pick. Yeah, I'll open it up. Right. But they said one of the problems is although the efforts are appreciated, the condom does not prevent assault and is not accessible to people with certain disabilities. I mean, let's face it. If you've got no thumbs or something, then you're out of luck. I guess. No matter how many people. Maybe you get 2 girls in there. I don't know. Or a guy in a girl, who knows? I don't know. I just thought that was interesting that the industry, the sex industry, is always one of those that's ahead of the curve.
Yeah, that sounds like they're jumping the shark there on that one.
Could be.
That sounds like there's a regulation I was going to talk about. This. So there's a couple of school issues that I saw this week.
Okay.
This rings a bell on one of them. An Illinois school has removed the doors to the bathroom stalls because somebody scrawled on the wall something about a terrorist attack.
Okay.
So they're going to prevent that by taking all of the doors off. I mean, it sounds like an Onion story. I swear to God.
Yeah, it does.
But I think it's real.
Can you imagine how many people are just going to hold it? You know.
Yeah, I mean, this is like a high school or something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, what are they thinking?
Yeah. Well, it's obvious. The Europeans don't care, but here in
it's
America.
like, so we removed all the toilet paper.
Yeah, that's right.
Or, you know, somebody scrawled it on the wall, so we took all the pens out of school.
Yeah.
God, it's just like, what? I mean, what are they thinking?
Well, no. Well, of course,
What is the causal relationship between
well, that's not all.
the ability to go to the bathroom in private and terrorism?
Well, not only that, they still have the sides.
Well, right.
They removed all the stalls. Just have the toilets out there in the
they're
open.
thinking is the terrorist is going to go in there and be like, damn, I was going to put another message up before I did my terrorist attack, but now somebody could see me if they happen to walk in just at the wrong time, so I guess the whole thing is off.
I mean, the bureaucrats
That's it.
are so stupid.
Dagnabbit.
Yeah.
Those administrators.
Yeah. Global warming is twice as fast in Canada as the rest of the world, says a report. Every time I see experts report and everything, you always kind of got to wonder about this. Now, one of the things that is interesting is there is a brand new, I'm going to get into this here in a minute, this is a corollary or ancillary to this, narrated by Attenborough. Mm-hmm. Now, it's on Netflix, and it's called The Earth, and it's different from the other previous ones. Mm. But the one I watched had to do with he's a very heavy environmentalist type person. Okay. David Attenborough is.
Yeah.
And so this is all about the disappearing of the sea ice.
Okay.
And this is the first one, I think, was about that kind of with the warming in Canada and so forth, and how the animals are all disappearing, and the statistics he comes up with are 47% of these are not going to make it, and blah blah blah, and there are all kinds of stuff like this. So and I'm looking at all, we have 22 million of these and 14 or whatever, blah blah blah, and it's all gone down. Well, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, yeah, okay, maybe, but so this is what says the North American nation Canada is warming at an average that's twice as fast as the rest of the world, according to a new scientific report produced by the Environment and Climate Change of Canada. Now, I'm guessing that these guys, I don't know, they get money, taxpayer money.
Independent bipartisan
No, it says,
group.
the national government agency responsible for coordinating the country's environmental policies. So it's a governmental bureaucrat, and they've come up with this. The average temperature has gone up twice as fast in 70 years, and is now approaching 3 degrees Fahrenheit in Canada, and half that for the rest of the world, I guess. Additionally, the warming produced from carbon dioxide emissions from human activity, and they said is, quote, effectively irreversible. Now, I'm sitting there thinking, if it's irreversible, why are you even, I don't know.
What do they say? What do they say? Irreversible, okay.
Yeah. Limited warming may occur if the report states if Canada and the rest of the world work on eliminating carbon emissions early in the second half of the century. Well, now, wait a minute. We're supposed to have, if 12 years or something, 10, 12 years from now is supposed to be what? I don't know what that is.
Kaboom.
But, yeah, kaboom, right. And now they're talking about the second half of the century, which means after 2050. And I would imagine that most of the people that wrote this report ain't going to be here then, but continuing on, another thing on this is bipartisan. This is in this country. Bipartisan senators want the, quote, highest possible, unquote, funding for carbon capture technology. This is what they want to do, is they want to set up these big, it reminds me a little bit of a science fiction-y thing where they were setting up these things where they were actually polluting the atmosphere so they knew people could do, but this is the opposite of that. So it's going to suck in and somehow condense the carbon dioxide into ice or something, and that way it'll get it out. So as the world transitions toward a carbon-constrained economy, investment in CCUS, which is carbon whatever it is, sequestration technology, will spur economic development and ensure energy security while protecting the environment from carbon dioxide emissions. Okay, it's a jobs program. Okay, you ready for this? It's a jobs program.
No, and it feeds children too.
Well, of course it does. But but what is this? Is so funny.
That's so funny. What?
Well, of course, the lawmakers wrote in Thursday a letter to the top senators in the Appropriations Subcommittee on Energy and Water Development. Okay, this is where they say they really want to start funding this carbon dioxide capture movement. And the carbon capture technology investment, mind you, has emerged as a rare bipartisan issue when it comes to climate change.
Yeah, sure it has.
Yeah, right.
Congress, it is just crap. I mean, the whole thing.
It gets worse.
Okay, go.
It gets worse. Congress last year passed legislation that expanded carbon sequestration tax credits to companies. So the technology, however, remains in early stages and hasn't been widely adopted, due in large part to its implementation cost. That's why lawmakers are calling for more federal funding. Interestingly enough, the two federal programs that include carbon capture research received, you ready for this, $101 million and $98 million for a total of $200 million for all of 2019. Now, for those of you who are listening to me, when you look at 200 millions, it is less than a rounding error in the budget. It's
still
nothing.
It's still 200 million wasted dollars.
I know, totally wasted.
I mean, 200 million just blown like at the roulette table.
Well, except for the fact that, as we said before, there are going to be half a dozen or a dozen companies that are going to have tax write-offs now and get a hold of some of this money, and they're all for it. We're working on it. We got this new machine here. Look, it's a backyard machine.
The House is happy to take your money all on 37 black or whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
Come on. This is look, that entire report is just an advertisement. And that's what you see so much these days in the news. Every news story I see, I just think of in the terms of an advertisement. I think, what are they pitching here? Who's selling what? What do they want me to believe at the end of the story? And then you try to glean out a fact or two here that they inadvertently or had to put in there just to make it somewhat believable.
Well, so many of these stories, as I've talked about before, is you have to read the entire story to get to the last sentence to find out what they're really saying.
Yeah, no, this is.
They had the clickbait headline, and then you find out, well, not so much.
Well, no, or the exact opposite. And I mean, I have seen stories recently of the Greenland ice sheets regrowing.
Yes. But in the David Attenborough one, they said it's shrinking beyond belief. When
was it produced? Because
recently, this is brand new on Netflix. It's produced within the last year or two.
Well, if it was 2 years, then that makes a big difference.
Right.
I think. And look, what I continue to see is alarmist reactions and projections that don't agree with any of even their science, even the NASA science,
right?
Even that stuff, which has what people would claim to be spurious conclusions,
right,
is nowhere near the stuff that you see in the news.
Right.
I continue to see stuff like the flooding of Miami. I saw a story.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and it was like, well, and it literally said right in the story, experts now estimate the sea rise level to be 6 to 10 feet by the end of the century. No. It's 6 to 10 inches right now.
Yeah.
It's 1/10 of what you're talking about in that story. So these things.
That's 1/12.
Yeah, well, still, it's estimates. But
remember, there's 12 inches to a foot.
Yeah. Wait. What?
Yeah.
All this time.
Yeah, all this time.
So. Yeah, but I did notice that NASA increased their sea level rise increase rate from 3.2 millimeters a year to 3.3 millimeters a year.
Whoa! Oh no.
Well, it's
run for the hills.
Still, since like last year when I checked it, it's increased. But I'm still waiting for when it's 3.2 inches per year. Then talk to me about anything catastrophic.
Well, they have you do on the really high tides, the neap tides or what they call when the sun and the moon and everybody and the waves are up. The streets of Miami do,
yes, some there are some places,
yeah.
But that's always been like that. I mean, and it's that's not changing in any dramatic way. And that's what the picture they always use.
Right, that's the picture they always use.
That piece of Miami. Right. Everybody knows where that piece is. You drive around that when the rains are super heavy.
Yeah.
Before it's all kind of settled down, and like you said, if it happens to be a full moon, high tide, whatever. Then okay, it's a little bit of an issue, but it's not that big, and you can tell by the real estate prices, which is what the article was all about. How come people are still buying property in Miami.
And paying that kind of money for it?
How come they're in cognitive dissonance was their article.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they were like, this is weird. All these people don't actually see reality. Or it's you.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, and this
It's
is...
all the people in Miami or that author.
That's right.
Come on, man.
Well, it is interesting because the market figures all this stuff out.
That's what I'm saying. Look, it's not like there aren't scientists in Miami.
Yeah.
There are climate scientists, guaranteed. Lots of them, dozens, hundreds maybe. There's schools down there. The people are not dumb in terms of that aggregation of people is not going to miss the obvious signs.
Yeah.
So they're just being exaggerated in all of these news stories that you hear right now. And this is just them grasping at straws at this point. I think this is the death throes of the days of the great climate evolution, the great climate change debate, I think, because of this stuff that, like, you had Al Gore say we were done by last year or the year before or 6 years ago.
2012, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and now everybody went for this 12 years thing, which it's 11 now. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're down. That was a year ago.
Countdown.
When it was 12.
Countdown.
And yeah, you see those stories about irreversibility and stuff, and it's total BS. We got Gen 4 nuclear to drop our stuff. Even Gen 3 nuclear. Everything. It's fine. We can drop our emissions fantastically right now. And like you said, if we wanted to capture carbon, we could do it. But the jury's still out on the exact effect.
Well, be careful what you wish for too. That's another thing.
Well, right.
You don't know. You don't quite understand what the ramifications. As the Earth tries to adjust to man's puny efforts to do something like this, right? But that's a little scary.
Well, obviously, it would be, from my perspective, a lot worse if there was cooling than warming.
Well, let me tell you one thing I did notice. This last weekend, Mrs. Jimmy she's a decorator, and she had a client up on the coast, on the Gulf Coast, near Apalachicola. And the place had been, I mean, devastated when the hurricane came through there a couple of years ago. I mean, flattened. And it'd been the first time in, 25 years or something. But as you drove up there, all brandy new houses, they're all on stilts, spectacular. The rentals up there are, $600 a night for some of these houses. They're, and they're this huge house. The one she was decorating was this up on stilts, and still 3 stories above that, and with a little elevator in it and everything. And you look at this thing, and all the houses now have got special roofs. That looks like they're tin roofs. Apparently, they've all redone the roofs on the places that. But I mean, the point is that the market is still saying, I don't care.
Yeah.
Bring it on. These houses are these houses are probably $500,000 at least to construct these days, at least. And the road is so funny because the road's still all torn up. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had to go in various places. You had to sit there and wait while the single lane came through, mm-hmm. and that was like a 30-minute wait. And then you go through while the other people wait 30 minutes. I have no idea what it's going to be like when it really gets crowded. But the point being that there were some really nice, brandy new looking houses, and these were expensive, big houses, all up on stilts. Mm-hmm. So those people that are paying that kind of money, apparently, and as I say, most of those are rentals, which I thought was kind of interesting. Week rentals, they have a minimum of a week. I don't know what it would be, but you're talking about $3,000 to $5,000 a week. Of course, they hold 12 people or something like that. But so I thought the market is speaking, damn sure speaking up there.
Yeah, there's just.
So one of my last things here, real quick, let me just see how we're running. Okay, ironically, and I thought this is true too, too many video streaming choices may drive users back to piracy. Now, I don't know if you've noticed it, but Apple just came online with their, Disney is trying to get all their stuff back. And now, and Hulu and some of the other ones, you have to pay. All of them, you have to pay. Some of them are $9 or $10 a month. Well, it's not long, you subscribe to 3 or 4, and you're paying more than you used to pay with some of those things in order to get the particular content, because they hide it. Yeah. And so what they're saying is that, it's been the streaming, as far as couple of years ago when Netflix started, it was a godsend for a couple of those people. Amazon was the same way, but we're talking now. Netflix just raised their price up to like $12 or $13 a month, and so between that and Amazon, it's $25 a month or something for those two. To have that particular content, and I think at least one of the new people is pulling their content from Amazon or Netflix or whatever it is, and in order to start their own
Disney
stream.
just got all theirs from Netflix.
Right.
Well, we've seen that go back and forth, the divisions and then the bundling and that kind of stuff, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes, but it's certainly just...
Well, one of the things I did notice is that Hulu, as of today, dropped their price.
There you go.
They have a freebie 30 days, and after that it's $6.99. So, and they have a lot. So I'm gonna try. I tried it once before, but but at $6.99, maybe I can handle that.
Yeah, you figure, like, I was paying at one point 10 years ago $300 a month for cable, internet, and show access, basically. That's a huge amount of cash.
Well, not only that, now HBO's got their own particular thing, and another one that they Showtime.
And an additional, I would say, $300 a month for telephone service.
Yeah, well, fortunately, that's gone down a little bit.
Yeah, well, it wraps in and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's good.
Well, somebody was saying that if you subscribe on a couple of them, I think as far as Hulu is concerned, there's another. Not Stitcher, but there's another service that includes Hulu. So
Yeah,
a couple of them are doing
that a
that.
bunch.
Depending, Verizon, or I forget who it is. One of the phone companies, I think, includes Hulu. So anyway, it's interesting. This is the perfect example of how disruption and innovation are supposed to work. Creative destruction, as Schumpeter said. We also noted that, ironically, the glut of video services, more specifically the glut of streaming exclusivity, risks driving users back to piracy. And said we'll have. They predict that every broadcaster and their uncle will have launched their own direct-to-consumer streaming by 2022.
It's
Who
not
knows?
piracy. It's going to be sharing stuff. Like, for a while, everybody had a Netflix subscription, but you don't need everybody to, because when you get together with 3 of your friends, you only need one person to have.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm going to find out about this when I was up at the place where Mrs. Jimmy was doing her decorating. They had all these televisions there. They had televisions that were Roku ready. Roku is kind of nice. So I went on and signed on to my Netflix account, and it bought it. It said, okay, you have to do it with your phone and the TV, and enter the code. But what I'm wondering now is if anybody goes up there, I'm wondering if now that counts as another 3 Netflix subscriptions. I couldn't find any way to turn it off. So whoever rents the thing is going to be get to. And on Netflix, of course, as I might have probably never mentioned before, West Wing is. I'm still. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, they're going to be frustrated by the growing costs, defeating the whole purpose of cutting the cord, which is right. I mean, once you start to get to everybody's streaming service, it's going to be big bucks. Okay. Now I think I'm coming in here towards the end. Let me just make sure. No, 2 more things. Donald Trump.
Okay.
Donald Trump's week of utter chaos sends a message. Many political observers are struggling to figure out what the president's game plan is for 2020. Now, it's funny because I figured it out instantaneously about what they're talking about. He's backtracked, he's this, that, and the other thing. And what it is, the news is all about him. Front, back, inside. He said this. No, he backed off. He was going to build the wall. Now, not so much. And he was going to do. Let's see, the wall, backed off from that. Healthcare, he backed off from that. So, I mean, the news, he smothers out all the other news by this chaos. And I think that's by design.
Yeah.
I mean, it's he manages to ramp up.
This is like Josh's secret plan. We got a secret.
Yes.
And then it's no, we don't.
Yeah.
Or we'll show it to you later.
Yeah. So anyway, I thought
it's coming out soon. Oh, wait, we have to work on it some more.
Well, I just thought this particular guy was writing. He says, with all this chaos, what is the president's strategy for winning re-election? The guy says, in fact, chaos is the strategy. using President Trump's hope to defeat Democrats in a massive game of prevent defense. And I think whatever that is. I mean, who knows? But
because there's still people who are going after him for the Mueller report and the tax returns and all.
Oh, well, they did, at least one of the guys in the White House, the head guy in the White House under Trump said they're never going to get the tax returns. Forget it.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because look, the House is trying to get the tax returns. Get this, by exercising their oversight power over the IRS.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, they're going to review Trump's tax returns to make sure the IRS is generally doing things the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody buying that shit?
No.
No.
Not for a second.
Not for a second. Not for a hot second. So you waltz that out in front of the court.
Yeah.
Knock yourself out with that argument,
Yeah.
counselor.
Counselor.
And we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So, and here's a bucket for your ass as the judge hands it to you before
Right.
you go out the door.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. So, and there's still people beating the dead horse about the Mueller report. Man, they're hanging on for dear life.
I saw one of the great cartoons in life. It showed, this was back when Hillary was running or something, or we were going to do something, and they showed this on the desert. They showed a skeleton of a dead horse, and she was down there trying to breathe life into it.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the kind of thing they're
that's the
working
kind
with
of
at
thing,
this
exactly.
point. So, look,
Give it up, Hillary.
Trump has
He's dead.
Trump has a one-way path to sure election or sure defeat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's the economy.
Oh right.
It's
Okay.
the
Yeah.
economy. If he can just hold this economy steady
For 18 months.
for 18 months, he's golden.
Okay.
Because-
But then, if it collapses the
Well, it
day
doesn't
after he's
matter.
elected, then he's still got 4 years.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah,
not going to make it anyway. I mean, he can't do a third.
Right, exactly. So it doesn't matter. And by then he'll have rigged it so he can blame it on the Fed. He's
Oh,
already
yeah.
started. Did you notice? Trump came out and called for QE4.
Yes, I saw it. This is, and of course, this is exactly the wrong prescription.
Well-
but it's the right prescription in let's see, how can I put this? It's the right prescription for 18 months. But it's
to keep Trump elected.
right. Yeah,
Maybe.
that's right. It might
Because
be too little, too late.
It might be. And it might also spook the market if they
I
were to do
agree.
that.
That's right. I
If
agree.
they were to go back, then people might be like, oh, Jesus. But I think you're right. I think that there's a little bit more left in the pump. And I'll tell you why. Because there's no alternative still. There's still no better place to put your cash. Even though it's a bubble, even though it's just because of the cheap money, we could there. And think about this. You ready? Let's say Trump loses. What do you think the Democratic winner, their policy is going to be?
Same old, and
Well,
or more.
More.
Yeah.
It's going to be
Yeah, get your interest rate back down to zero again.
and
QE.
and also let's rip the knob off of this spending here. Let's forget about this.
Oh, you mean rip the knob off the cap.
Right.
Right.
Rip the cap off the spending and just go $2 trillion a year in debt. Just because that's their idea. They're Keynesians. They really believe they can spend their way out of this mess. So and they really believe that we just haven't gotten out so far. The green shoots that Obama planted in like 2010, okay, never took root because we didn't water them with enough cash, basically. Okay, so that would be the plan at that point. If Trump loses, we go into a situation where people could really lose faith in the dollar, and they could switch over to the euro or the yuan or something. If we
Bitcoin.
or Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, there could be wild fluctuations in the currency situation if somebody with a socialist mindset and a socialist Congress got into power
Well, like you say, all of the Dems running are socialists, basically.
They are. And so it would come down to how extreme they are and who they got to go along in the Congress. So, but that's if he loses. If he wins, well, I don't know. I mean, then at least I guess there's maybe...
Well, this is all rank speculation. We're going to have to wait 18 months to find it. Actually, what we have to do, what's going to be kind of interesting in a way, they're going to have all the debates and the primaries, remember.
Yeah.
So we're going to know who's running against... there is one Republican that's going to try and run against Trump.
Oh, there'll be a few before it's all over.
I don't know. There's one. This guy who ran as a libertarian last time was Weld.
Yeah.
I think he's the one that's been announced.
Well, you wait. What's her name from North Carolina's coming in too?
Really?
Yeah.
Nikki?
Yep.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Boy,
she checks a bunch of boxes, and
really.
and she's got international experience from her time at the UN. She's got executive experience for her time in North Carolina, and so
Yeah, but you don't think that Trump's going to decimate her? I mean, he's...
Well, she's going to be a tough person to attack because she's very serious. She's a woman. She's also Native American. There's a bunch. She's a tar baby in terms of attack.
Okay.
So you better watch out. Now, I mean, he's good, and I think he would beat her up, and I think he would still potentially win. But I think she will get into the race, and I think she will be somebody to contend.
Well, that's okay. We're mark this episode down, folks.
I'm the worst at predictions.
Okay.
So you should, if there's a odds on that she won't get in the race, bet on that.
Okay. All right. Okay. The last thing I've got here is expert in quote colon. In 50 years, self-driving cars will be unthinkable. Now, this person, this lady that wrote this article, is what
you mean personal driving cars? Or?
Yeah, she said what she says is that people are not going to let go to have cars run autonomously. They're always going to have to be a driver because somebody has to be in charge. And she says, she thinks the era of autonomous cars is far from inevitable. Not because researchers won't be able to perfect the technology. She argues it's the role drivers currently play in society that we won't be able to live without. And what she's saying is she gives an example of how a bus driver calmed down a passenger on the bus that was kind of going a little nutsy. And of course, the thing about what's so funny about this is she says it just doesn't feel safe to imagine riding in a shared driverless vehicle because it doesn't feel safe to be alone in a small enclosed space with strange men. I guess she's never flown in an airplane.
Look, this is just a death throw. This is another death throw.
Yeah,
about
I thought it was so funny because
jobs to automation. This is one of the things they're worried about. And Andrew Yang, if you watch the Shapiro special with him on there, this is one of his big fears, is that so many people will be thrown out of work by automated vehicles because there's a huge number of states, 13 states, the majority of their population works in driving, and it's a lot of people who drive, right? Because cars. Look, it was a big innovation, okay? But if you think about that, right, you might think, well, Jesus, those dang cars are going to put all those people driving horses out of business because they're so damn efficient.
Yeah.
Okay, guess what happened? Not that.
Yeah. No.
Okay? You always get an expansion of jobs. You always get, there are so many more divisions of jobs, so many more jobs available in every way, both types of jobs and numbers of jobs than there have been previously. And technology has never been greater or more replete. It's like the idea that we're going to lose jobs and not recover is just insane.
Well, one of the little problems we've got is somebody was talking the other day about the middle class or lower middle class or whatever as they are, if you know, talking about has not really seen a rise in their income, for 30 or 40 years. But a lot of that is because of the barriers to entry. I mean, the fact is you can't, even in this town, it used to be you want to start a business, you went and started it. You maybe had to put a notice in the paper, but that was basically it. Now you have a license for everything.
Well, that's the barriers. The barriers to entry are licensing, copyrights, patents, these regulations, just a whole bunch of government layers of restrictions.
And I'll tell you, you get rid of those, you get rid of that stuff, and and that's what we were talking about here just a minute ago. There are no regulations on your porn dolls. So
right.
Start it up.
Got a business.
Got a business,
exactly.
right?
Exactly.
But they're not.
They'll shut him down.
They'll shut him down. That's exactly right.
Well, in the name of health. But
the cars, I used to say this is Luddite mentality.
Yeah.
Luddite. Because I remember the most famous thing that everybody should know about is when the Jacquard loom came up, which was the beginning of computing. That's when they had the little cards that they would put on the loom, and you'd slide the card would decide which strings were going to be pulled through on the rugs of the fabric. And of course, it put a lot of people. Well, the Luddite people, who were operating the looms manually, literally would walk in and destroy these looms. Well, it turned out that 25 years later in England, 25 years later, there were like 10 times as many people employed in the fabric building industry as had previously been employed. Right. And we see this kind of stuff all the time.
That's the way it will happen again. They don't have to worry about it. They don't have to worry about having UBI, and they've just lost sight of the way that the market works.
That's really, and what's fascinating to me is that these guys are so smart that the market, which is comprised of about 7.5 billion individual system thinking brain cell thoughts a day, a minute, a second, they're going to figure out just exactly how to tweak the 7.5.
You don't even think of it like that. Like one of his policies he was talking about is he says America has suffered because we are not as mobile as we used to be. We used to move from city to city, and that rate has dropped. And he says, I think that's a shame. Like, well, who the hell are you to?
Yeah,
like,
right.
And then he says, I think that type of mobility is something. There's something romantic about it, and it's like, what the hell are you talking about, dude? He's like, so I want to give people money to encourage them to move. He's like, he's not even thinking that it's somebody else's money and that this is just what he wants. I mean, he's not even thinking about the other factors involved in that. Like maybe people want to stay with their families more than they used to. Maybe, I mean, there could be any number of factors, but just in his mind, he's going to just promote this mobility because he thinks it's going to promote job creation. And because he cites the figures of there are 7 million unfilled jobs and there's less mobility. So he's like, oh, well, let me just get these two things together. Kablamo.
Problem solved.
Problem solved. It's like, dude, no, it just may not work out anything like that. And it's the same with this UBI. He just imagines people are going to use it.
That's the universal basic income.
Right. He wants everybody to get $1,000 a month. Okay, at a cost of 1.3 trillion extra dollars in tax money a year, and he thinks people are just going to use it to then fulfill their dreams and hobbies and not do.
A lot of people don't realize that. For instance, I actually wouldn't mind moving out of here because the government here is socialist, but I'm trapped. Basically, Mrs. Jimmy's got 150 clients that she can't move away from, and they call her up literally 24/7 to get her to do stuff. And
well, it's part of community and such,
right?
It's part of how we organize ourselves, and for him to just imagine that he's just going to throw together a better way with just everybody else's money.
They always do that. I mean, it is interesting to see they don't have even a clue of understanding what the unintended consequences are, even when they come out, and the whatever they decided to do, the exact precisely 180 happens, and they're going like, gosh, I didn't see that coming. And of course there were a lot of people that stood up there. This happens all the time down here. What they've done now here in our town is they're starting to limit the number of times you can get up and speak to the commissioners. If you have a complaint, something, then they say, well, no, we've already heard about that, you can sit down now. And they don't really want to hear about a lot of the citizen complaints. And so they're just going to go ahead and do what they want to do. It's really gotten pretty terrible here. Anyway, that happens in a lot of places, I guess.
Right. Well,
even they are embarrassed about their mistakes, I guess.
Right. Well, we got off of healthcare.
I'm sorry.
Onto UBI or whatever, just because I was talking about Yang. But what was your last story about?
The last one was about the driving of the cars.
Right.
The robo cars or whatever.
So, yeah.
And we've talked about this before because it's going to be a godsend on so many levels. It'll be a godsend. And the idea that one of the problems you'll have is that every time there's an accident, we're at 40,000 deaths a year for openers. Right. Not to mention the fender benders and the injuries. But so every time there's a Lexus or whatever it is, or not one of his what's his name's cars, Tesla, runs something or hits somebody or even kills somebody, as far as I got to ban them all. I'm thinking, wait a minute. During this particular time involved, there were 1,000 deaths on the highway.
Yeah.
Right. So what you should do is to ban.
It'll be undeniable, as we've said many times. As soon as the insurance companies start figuring out that the computers are statistically better drivers, they will offer discounts if you have a self-driving car.
Well, not only that, as we've talked about before, a lot fewer people are going to own cars.
Right, because you won't need it.
There will be a depot
car
here. Well, there will be a depot over here, and you'll basically Uber it up, with your thing, and it'll drive over, and you pay by the hour or the minute or whatever the hell it is, and done.
Right.
I mean, that's God, what a business that's going to be.
Yeah.
And you can imagine the other stuff, like, for instance, all the airports parking that will now not be needed.
Right.
I mean, all that space is going to be available.
Yep.
That's stunningly amazing, the
Yeah.
stuff that you think about. God, you have these vast, even over here at the Walmart, for instance, the parking takes up 5 times the space of the Walmart, but that could be all done now. Forget it, because
Yeah, you'd half that parking. complex.
absolutely, you won't have to park even hardly. I mean, you basically the car goes away and does something else. When you're done, you call it back, and basically, I'm telling you, it's going to be a godsend. I can't, as far as I'm concerned, I can't have it happen fast.
I'm with you. Do you think it'll ever be appropriate to take a baby and just put it in a car and just send it off to the in-laws?
You bet. Hell yeah.
Hey, Moses did it, right? Or Moses?
Yeah, that's
parents?
right. Right, parents, right, exactly. Yeah, just put them in the basket in the river and gone.
That's right. Superman's parents.
Yeah, that's right. Send him off. Now that was interesting because you sent him off, a couple of light years away.
Well, they had a good automated system.
Yeah, they did. Right. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm done. You got anything else? We're about finished on time.
Look at you taking up all the good.
I know.
That's all right. Let's see. We covered 2 of my things real quick. I wanted to mention one more school thing, which was there was a kid arrested for terrorism.
How old was this kid?
I think 17.
Okay.
He brought a paintball gun to school
Okay. Yeah.
as part of a class project.
Okay.
And got clearance first.
Okay.
But somebody tweeted a picture of, I guess, him or the gun or something, with a message that said, "School shooter, be safe," or something like that.
Okay.
So they bagged the kid and they put him in juvie for like 2 days. Before they figured it out, and now they're making him take like special classes and stuff. Now, the kid had
They're
no
re-education,
yeah,
right out of the commie playbook.
right. Total re-education for this kid who they admit did nothing intentional. Okay, got permission for everything. Did not send out the tweet. Okay, and yet he's the one because he brought a device which resembles a gun to school.
But I got news for you. The paintball guns that I've seen don't resemble a real gun at all. What?
That resembles a gun.
Yeah, well, I suppose you can say it, but usually they're multicolored or something, or they got a big ball on top of them that holds.
Hey, I'm with you, but it didn't stop them from putting this kid in jail for 2 days.
And of course, now he has new appreciation for law enforcement.
Yeah, well, the kid unfortunately wanted to be in law enforcement, so now he's. We'll see if he can make it at this point. He probably will because of the story and everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Let's see. I had a science update real quick that I didn't do last time. Do you want to do it real quick?
Why not?
Okay. So a woman had 2 functional uteruses.
Uteri.
I don't know. I think it's uteruses because it's Greek, but I don't know.
Okay.
It's,
okay.
Anyway, she gave birth, went home, a month later came back and gave birth again.
No.
Yep.
This is.
No, it's real.
It's not from The Onion.
Nope. And the kids all survived and everything. Ridiculous.
Now let me ask you a question. Same father?
That's a good question.
Good
The
question.
second birth was twins also.
No.
Yes.
Oh my God. Same father?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So also there was another. There was a person born with another person inside of them already.
This is like out of the Mars thing with Arnold.
I know. It was like a baby with a baby in it already. That somehow the baby but that's just weird science. And then you heard about the woman who can't feel pain.
Yes, I did. I was going to bring her up, and I thought that was kind of interesting because they said that most of those people, for obvious reasons, don't survive very long because they. I mean,
they have no fear of shit.
Well, no, not only that. They don't know when they've been mortally wounded.
Oh, right, yeah, that's true.
And because they don't feel the pain.
Right.
But apparently this woman.
Really a flesh wound.
Yeah, that's right. No, I mean seriously. They said the average, is about 16 years old before they find something that goes bad with them. Because there's other things. I mean, if you get sick, for instance, pneumonia, you don't even know it, that kind of stuff. But apparently has some very limited. Not pain receptors, very limited.
Yeah.
It's like 1/100th of normal or something, but gave birth and everything without nothing. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so that makes a lot of sense to me because I have realized that I obviously have extra sensitivity.
I do too.
To pain.
Yeah, no. If they came up to me, if I'd been in the military, and they said we're going to torture you for information, don't bother.
That's it. I'm talking.
I'm talking
they
now.
wheel out that tray of medical equipment.
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, you don't have to use any of that stuff on me. You can wheel that out and wheel back in some recording equipment because
right.
I'm going to have a lot to say.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that would be. Now, it was interesting. One of the things that they found out from this is the gene. There's a gene that does all this stuff, and so now they're figuring.
I have two of those.
Yeah. Okay. Right. But apparently, I don't know what they called it, but apparently there's a gene, and who knows if they're going to start splicing those or do whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? But all right. That's it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Jimmy Doan Show. We thank you for joining us, Gene. Great to have you, sir. And everybody else who may eventually listen. After we become famous, you never know. This is Kevin McLeod. Happy Game Show. You heard Cold Funk during our science update and Whiskey on Mississippi earlier.
I didn't even get a chance to wear my NASA hat.
Oh man,
We were going to talk about NASA.
You're in charge of NASA, right?
I'm in charge of NASA. This is my NASA hat. We're gonna talk about it next time because they've decided to do some stuff. Well, that's for Wednesday.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, NASA hat in the. There we go. That's it.
I have to adjust this head size. So, anyway, thanks a lot. We will see you Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Right here. Same bad time. Same bad channel.
I love this song, tune, whatever.
Great.